Isn't it amazing the transformations we go through in our lives? From being born. What a transformation that was. What an experience. One we don't even remember. To growing up as a child with all our flaws and insecurities. To becoming an adult and a parent. Whoa, what a transformation that was. And becoming a grandparent. Ultimately, to die and go back to where we came from. The ultimate of transformations. The last conscious experience you'll ever have and never get to remember. Well, at least I don't think so. But you know the good news is that we'll all get the chance to find out. But not just in our lives, in our work as well. Most of us didn't start in this industry. We started someplace completely different, and we came here as pioneers, trying to shape the human race. Look at me, for example. I started 24 years ago as a biologist, studying bacteria, viruses, and cancers, literally pulling blood out of people's arms, looking for HIV, trying to develop a vaccine against the virus, trying to control nature, control biology, or at least influence it. But the last 12 years, I've been spending my attention on technology because I realized something, that our biology doesn't change in our lifetimes. We die too quickly. But technology is changing at a pace we can't even measure anymore. And this is a transformation we're all going to have to deal with, not just in our work, but also at home and in our lives. So let me take you back 2 decades to a very remarkable year, 1997. It was a year that gave rise to the biggest organization on the planet today. Most of us have licked their products, which was Steve Jobs' ultimate ambitions, for us to lick his magical creations, just like we lick our appendages, because that's what they've become, haven't they? An appendage, a second brain. And when Steve Jobs came back to Apple, he launched the Think Different campaign. An agency created it, TBWA. And he launched this campaign. Now, you've got to realize that this was a pivotal moment in human history. The rise of the internet, the rise of connectivity, this connection machine that just disrespects borders. And he launched the Think Different campaign because he knew that nothing remarkable in this world comes from following the status quo. This was a campaign about us, really, about the crazy ones, the misfits, the rebels, the ones that pushed the human race forward. We wrote books about them, we made movies about them, they inspired us, we even let them lead us. But don't be fooled, these crazy ones, they're all around us, maybe even in this room. You know, as we move from a world of products to services, we're going to need you to think different. As we move from a world of ownership to access, we're going to need you to think different. And as we move from a world of scarcity into a world of abundance, we're going to need you to think different, because that's all technology does. It turns scarce resources into abundant ones. A few examples. Who here uses Spotify? Most of you. You see, we used to buy a cassette, a CD, an MP3, and now we access 42 million songs for the price of a cup of coffee. Mobility. We used to own our means of transportation, but now, in built-up, hyper-connected cities, we simply access mobility through Uber and Lyft. It's technology that gets us from A to B. And energy. None of this would work without energy. Did you know there's enough energy that hits the Earth's surface in 1 hour to power global energy needs for a whole year? The problem isn't energy. The problem is access to energy. And technology like solar panels solves for this. So why did Steve Jobs never give these things to his kids? Why did they reintroduce the black apple in 2015 when mobile really hit the fan? the Apple that Steve Jobs introduced in 1998, right in the middle of the Think Different campaign. The forbidden fruit, the path to sin, always makes you want more. And look at the iterations in between. Look at 2007, the year the iPhone launched, the shiniest Apple of all. Why black? Well, I'll leave that one up to your imagination. And why does technology disrespect borders so much? The borders we spent thousands of years constructing to protect culture, beliefs, values. Disrespects borders. It only respects them to the level of regulation we impose upon it, or to the rules that you code into it. You know, on the one side, you've got the US and the UK hyper-connecting themselves over the last 2 decades. And now what are they doing? They're pulling back. They're trying to go back to the way it used to be. And on the other side, you have China, who have understood the dangers of hyperconnection. They've been protecting themselves from this connection machine ever since the beginning. And now what are they doing? Well, they see opportunity. They see opportunity to expand beyond their borders through technology. You know, technology is wonderful at bringing us closer together, but the information that flows through it often pulls us further apart. Take a look at this piece of paper, for example. Do you know that this piece of paper represents the biggest technological innovation known to mankind since the rise of the internet? Johannes Gutenberg, the printing press, over 500 years ago. And what this piece of paper symbolizes is our ability to remember past our brains, because now we can write it down. Now we can communicate afar, across borders. Just like the hard drive. It's solving a problem that we forget. And so we can store it somewhere else. But even this piece of paper is becoming obsolete now, right? We're entering a digital age. We don't send letters anymore, we email, we chat, we use Messenger. And even our invoicing and contractual system are being digitized. The digital transformation, information enabling an organization, giving momentum and speed to information so that it gets in the right place and finds value. Just like any currency. Currency is worth nothing unless it moves, gets into the right hands in a supply and demand ecosystem. But it's never been about the paper, has it? See what happens when you focus on the wrong thing? See what happens when you focus on the technology? Because it's always been about the information this paper carries. You see, even the biggest innovations known to mankind become irrelevant if you give them enough time. But in this piece of paper is the key to the power of technology. And for this, I'm going to need 2 brave pioneers to come up with me on stage. Ideally, Adam and Eve. Let's keep this gender diverse. 2 pioneers that are going to come up with me on stage and help me fold this piece of paper. Couple that can take the arrows, take the leap of faith, come up here. Now, no, I'm not going to have any problem finding people. I know it. This industry is a pioneering industry. So I'm going to walk back to the stage now, and I want 2 people following me. It can be more if you like. I've got extra pieces of paper, but at least 2. Come up. Tim. Weasley. Connecting our world. Hi. Hello. Okay, I'm going to give them both a piece of paper.
Thanks.
You come out here where everybody can see you. And so the exercise is they're going to fold this piece of paper in half. Every time, in half. And every time you count. 1, 2. As they're folding, I want you to think, how many times would I have to fold this piece of paper in order for the thickness of the piece of paper to reach the moon? 384,000 kilometers away. The piece of paper is 0.1 millimeters thick. Start thinking. How many folds are you up to?
6.
6?
That's
Whoa.
about it.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah. I'm not
I mean,
gonna
if
be
you're
seven.
really strong, you can get to 7.
Really?
Yeah?
Nope. 6 is the
6?
maximum.
Can you get to 7, Tim? No? 6? Yeah, 7's quite tough. You sort of need to use your shoes.
Yeah, maybe I could use my heel.
Cool. Okay, 6 it is.
6.
Thank you. Thank you. Big round of applause for our brave pioneers. Thanks. Thanks, Tim. So you see, you ran out of resources. You run out of the ability to fold. But technology solves for that, remember? Technology solves for scarcity, creates abundance. So with technology, we could keep solving. And let's have a look at some math. At 7 times, I lose the ability to fold. At 14 times, I reach the height of a small child. At 25 times, I cross the finish line of a marathon. At 30 times, I hit a satellite. And at 42 times, you land on the moon. Who got pretty close? Really? Who was way, way up there? Who was like down there, like 20 folds? Who didn't do anything at all? All right. 42, huh? The number that answers everything in the universe. Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. Coincidence? Fate? I don't know. But at 50-fold, you reach the sun. And at 100-fold, you cross the entire observable universe of 46 billion light years. 100 folds. See, that's the power of technology. That's the power of exponential growth. And this is where all our pain is coming from. Because technology grows exponentially, but we don't. We've evolved over millions of years. But technology evolves over decades to years. And now with AI and self-learning algorithms, months, hours, and minutes. 100. I don't know if many of you have kids here. When they're around 3 or 4, we can't really remember ourselves, but there was this number that we could never think beyond. 100. Remember? 100. And you have kids now. 100. It's like they can't think past that. Well, maybe they weren't far from the truth. Maybe we were just born with an exponential mindset. Maybe we're just born thinking big. And we just pull them back to this linear age, pull them back to culture, to the status quo. Because you see, anything to the power of 100 is infinity to human comprehension. Has anyone binged what Google means? Google means something. Well, actually, it's a misspelling. That's how nerdy the founders were. They misspelled their own company name. Google actually is a misspelling of goggle. And goggle means something. It's a number. It is simply 10 to the power of 100. You see, the Google founders were onto something from right at the beginning. When you apply technology to things, you give them exponential nature. When you give those things exponential nature, opportunities are limitless. And you know, even the tiniest organisms on this planet grow exponentially. And they've actually helped us to evolve and become the species we are today. We wouldn't have got here without them. But at the same time, they can make us very, very sick. So how are you going to think differently? How are you going to think exponentially? How are you going to grow exponentially? Well, you see, anything that has exponential growth ultimately consumes its resources, produces so much waste that it impedes its own ability to grow. We see this with bacteria, with viruses, with cancers, and ultimately they have to spread through ecosystem and generation to survive. Everything in life follows a bell curve, including organizations, where you grow when you're relevant, then you mature, and then you decay when you become irrelevant. And the ability to grow is directly linked on your ability to solve problems, to solve these obstacles that are getting in your way. But then you reach a certain size, you get so big that you start to think that you know it all. You start to think you know all the answers. And there are too many stakeholders to answer to, and we all disagree with each other. So it starts to become really tough to solve these problems. And resources aren't abundant anymore because you're not growing anymore. So solving these problems becomes even tougher. But you see, the great organizations of our era actually grow through an S-curve. They reinvent themselves. They take the path to relevancy by solving problems instead of going to irrelevancy. Organizations like Microsoft, organizations like Google. And they do this because they keep solving problems. It's hard at first, but then they regain their ability to solve these problems at a pace that they once had. And this phase, this reinvention phase, this transformation phase, is called the lag phase. And it's critical that you get through this phase. You must find a way through. Otherwise, the path is to irrelevancy. That's why it's so important to enable entrepreneurs and pioneers within organizations. Because you see, my definition of an entrepreneur is simply someone who finds a way in high risk and uncertainty. This lag phase, if we Google it, this is what it says. I tried to Bing it. There's a big fat ad in the middle I couldn't get out. But that might be a pretty cool thing for marketers. So, you see, bacteria also encounter lag phases, and they have to mutate. They have to change something in order to adopt to their ecosystem, in order to undergo the next round of exponential growth, ultimately to consume their resources and produce waste. Well, we only have to modify a few words in this paragraph to adapt it to a business world. Bacteria for organization, logarithmic for exponential, nutrients for resources, and waste. Well, how do we deal with waste in organizations? We use methodologies like Lean and Kaizen to eliminate waste, because you see, when you're growing, you produce waste, and waste becomes toxic. When we zoom out a little bit, we see that this S-curve actually repeats itself over and over and over again, from growth phases and lag phases. And these lag phases are critical places where disruptive innovators come in and solve the industry's problems. They're the pioneers, the entrepreneurs that come in and solve the industry's problems, ultimately catalyzing new industries, growing new industries for the incumbents, the big companies, to come in and settle, take the land. This is the traditional path. Mergers and acquisitions, that's how we buy these entrepreneurs up. I say, either breed them from within, enable them from within, or buy them from without. It's so critical to enable entrepreneurship and pioneers within your organization. And I know, I've walked among you for many, many years. I know there are a lot of entrepreneurs within our industry. Actually, we're in a pioneering industry, so by definition, most of you that came here have transformed and are pioneering into a new industry. You know, there's one quote that's always going to hold true. Pioneers take the arrows, settlers take the land. Because you see, pioneering is tough. You have to be able to willing to take a few arrows. And the more you challenge the status quo, the deeper those arrows get. That's what we're seeing now with Elon Musk. He's having a tough time, isn't he? Because he's really challenging that status quo. The more you challenge, the deeper they go, and the more it starts to hurt. You know, so while Elon Musk is redefining mobility with Tesla, SpaceX, Hyperloop, the Boring Company, and redefining energy with gigafactories and solar cities, and even challenging what it means to be human with Neuralink, connecting our brains to the internet, make us smarter. The best minds of our generation are trying to figure out how to get people to click more ads. Now, this is a quote from Jeff Hammerbacher, an ex-employee of our Big Blue friend. Now, and he went on to use his AI and machine learning talents to try and fight cancer. This is a quote often used by Elon Musk. Now, the biggest opportunity as we go deeper and deeper into this digital era is actually going to be what it's always been. And that's going back and making the emotional connection with people and using technology and data to do that better at scale. Going from a transactional ecosystem into a relational ecosystem. You know, reach for someone's wallet and they'll turn their back on you. But reach for their heart and they'll give you their wallet. It's because people don't remember what you say. People won't even remember what you do. People remember how you made them feel, because feelings give rise to emotions, and emotions are what makes memories stick. So this drove me 2.5 years ago to build a model. It's called Meaningful Connections. And it's a model I built that pretty well describes how to build relationships through technology. Now, this is a surface level of the model. The model goes much deeper than this. And I'm not going to talk too much about it today because I've spoken about it a lot of times. You can go and see it on YouTube. On the one side, it's the platforms, the cloud. I summarized everything in one word to help people at Traffic for You understand how to go into a relational environment, build relationships with customers and consumers. The World Wide Web are linked devices that generate data. Why IoT, the Internet of Things? Because there are just a lot of devices connected to this thing called the Internet. Why big data? Because there's a lot of data, and when you can connect it in meaningful ways, you can draw insights from it, which helps you make better decisions. Decisions on how to build better relationships with your consumers, with your customers. On the other side is how we use it, but it really describes a process on how to build relationships. You know, Kara described a lot, the first two, personalization and experiences. But there are another couple of them, and the next one is empowerment, really solving people's problems, and then driving value, which is really about managing expectations. And where Google came in right at the beginning, they understood this. They understood that information was important for us, and they collected the world's information and made it universally accessible and useful. It's their mission statement to this day. And they did that. They put up a search bar, they put the world behind it, and we went there and we told them what we wanted. The holy grail of marketing. I say advertising is about getting people's attention, and marketing is about turning needs into wants. The holy grail of marketing is just ask what people want. And search engines like Bing and Google built a whole model around this. And it starts by personalization. It starts by understanding the needs and wants of the other person. Building trust by acting in their best interest. The next step, building experiences, because you see, you're not part of an experience unless you spend your attention there. If I lose your attention, you're not in my experience anymore. And we pay attention. We've been paying attention all our lives. So the big platforms and the companies, even the small stores, need to earn that attention because we pay. Because in our attention is our behavior, and in our behavior is our data. So you need to earn it. And the way to earn attention in this digital era, Carla talked about, where are you, Carla? I'm sort of pointing, did she leave? The way to earn attention in this digital ecosystem is to merge the physical and the digital. Create these remarkable experiences that really pull people in, like Carla described in her presentation. The next step is empowerment, and this is about solving problems. You see, life is just one big problem. And that's what we're all going to die someday. We keep trying to solve this problem every day. But when you actually break it down, it's millions of little problems. And technology startups have gotten onto this because what do? They solve problems. They don't build products, they solve problems. And they often use technology and data to solve those problems. I mean, look at this phone, for example, this iPhone. These apps that you're putting on this page, this is a behavioral space. The apps you're putting on this phone is your choice. And every single app you put on this phone is solving a problem for you. And when it doesn't, you take it off. It's highly empowering. It's an experience. And because it empowers you and solves your problem, it becomes very addictive because it makes you better till it doesn't anymore. The next step is about driving value, and in a relationship context, this is all about managing expectations. Over-deliver, hey, people feel value, they're happy. Under-deliver, and they feel shortchanged. Do that often enough, and they'll start to complain, and they'll start to flirt with your competitors, with your disruptive innovators. Ultimately, this is a 4-step process in how to build customer happiness, which is the ultimate goal. Make people happy, and they come back for more. So what will you do differently? Well, I'm going to share with you a little secret. It's a little secret I learned some time ago. The secret to getting anything you want in life is to line up what you want with what the other person wants. But for that, you need to know what they want. And you need to know what you want. And for that, the best way to find out is just to ask. And that's where it breaks down. Because that's where we're all afraid. We're all afraid about what other people are going to think of us. So I came across this rule, and it changed my life forever. It's called the 18-40-60 rule. At 18 years old, all you care about is what other people think of you. When you go into your 40s, you don't care about what anybody thinks of you. And when you turn 60, you realize no one's actually thinking of you at all. So it doesn't matter what people think of you. What matters is what you think of yourself. And when they're actually thinking about you, all they're thinking about is how you're thinking about them. So don't worry about it. Search engines have built a model around this concept. That I'm feeling lucky button, that's their audacious statement to say one day we're going to get it right. And until then, we're going to make the most mistakes out of any company on this planet, because every time you go there and do a search, they can't give you an answer. They give you a choice. That's where we're headed in search. The right answer every time, because they understand you so well, even better than yourself, they can answer your questions. So if there was one thing I could leave you with, just one, it would be this quote. It was given to me recently by someone I respect a lot. He trained me as a speaker. You know, we saw the best organizations up here on the podium just earlier. As an organization, towards your employees, towards your customers, towards your partners, towards your shareholders, be so good they can't ignore you. And as teams, we saw many of those teams up here today showing the work that they've done and the impact that they've done. As teams within organizations, needing the resources that you need to have the impact that you want to have to make. Be so good they can't ignore you. And as individuals, because that's actually where it all starts. Now, I know that most of you aren't going to do anything about this right now. Maybe your time hasn't come yet. Or maybe this is just a reminder from the past. But I can guarantee you one thing. There's at least one person in this room that's absolutely going to do something about it. And right now, I'm talking to you, whoever you are. Be so good, they can't ignore you. Thank you.